THETAKEI, want to tell you about a robot in overalls. I was walking the floor of Make It in the Emirates 2026 at ADNEC this week, the UAE's flagship industrial forum, now in its fifth year and its largest edition by some margin, when I turned a corner and stopped. On one side, the Ministry of Culture's section, showcasing traditional Emirati handicrafts, intricate weaving, hand-tooled leather, objects that carry centuries of knowledge in their construction. On the other side, close enough to seem deliberate, a humanoid robot dressed in bright yellow overalls, dancing, not demonstrating a task, just dancing. My first reaction was confusion. What is going on here? Then, about 30 seconds later, oh, I think I understand exactly what is going on here. Make It in the Emirates is, on its face, a procurement and exhibition event. 1245 exhibitors, 88,000 square meters, an AED 180 billion procurement drive targeting the localization of 5,000 products, a DH1 billion National Industrial Resilience Fund, numbers that are hard to contextualize and easy to skim. The theme this year, Advanced Industry, Emerging Stronger, carries more weight than most event taglines ever do. Emerging stronger implies you had to weather something. It is honest about the supply chain fragilities, energy transition pressures, and geopolitical trade disruptions that have made the last 5 years genuinely difficult for any economy with industrial ambitions. It is also a statement of direction. We are not just recovering, we are reconfiguring. But the tagline, the numbers, the robot, none of them are the story. They are all pointing at something more interesting, a systematic approach to building an ecosystem that people do not just enter, but belong to. Most ecosystem building efforts fail not because the economics are wrong, but because the architecture is incomplete. They offer incentives without identity, capital without commitment, policy without people. The UAE, over the course of 5 years and 5 editions of this event, has quietly worked out something that most governments, and frankly, most businesses, still miss: that the most durable form of investment is not capital, it is commitment. And commitment, unlike capital, can be engineered. It operates across four levers simultaneously, and this is where the interesting analysis lives for those of us who sit at the intersection of law, marketing, governance, and community. Start with the legal layer. The UAE Cabinet recently approved amendments to the National In-Country Value (ICV) program, making local procurement participation mandatory across federal entities and companies in which the government holds a stake of 25% or more. This is not a soft nudge or a voluntary badge that companies can display on their websites. It is a legal instrument that restructures the incentive landscape at the supply chain level. When the largest buyers in your market are legally required to source locally, you do not wait for a community of local manufacturers to self-organize. You mandate the conditions for one. Critics will call this protectionism. Practitioners who have lived through the long, slow failure of purely voluntary localization programs will call it something else: effective. Law, deployed at this level, does not just regulate behavior, it creates belonging by making exit structurally costly. You cannot localize and then quietly unlocalize when a cheaper option appears from elsewhere. And here is where it gets really interesting. The day before Make It in the Emirates opened its doors, ADNOC held its own pre-event, Make It with ADNOC, a forum that connected the UAE's biggest engineering, procurement and construction contractors directly with 70 local manufacturers that have qualified under ADNOC's Local Plus program. At the same event, ADNOC announced AED 200 billion, roughly $55 billion, in new project awards for 2026 to 2028. Let that number sit for a second. That is not a subsidy, that is a pipeline, a declared time-bound signal to every manufacturer, SME, and supply chain player in the region. Here is what is coming, here is the scale of it, and here is the door into it. The announcement happened on the eve of the main forum, not by accident, but by design. You do not turn up to the community event wondering whether there is something in it for you. That question was answered the night before, in a room of buyers with very large budgets and a legal obligation to source locally. The drumbeat of commitment preceded the festival of community. That sequencing is not logistics, that is strategy. The governance layer is where that robot starts to make sense. Make It in the Emirates is hosted by the Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology, expected. but the co-organizing entities include the Ministry of Culture, the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, and ADNOC. Read that list slowly. Why is the Ministry of Culture sitting at an industrial forum? Because someone at a policy level understood something that most governments do not. An industrial ecosystem does not become durable until it becomes an identity. The handicrafts and the dancing robot are not a quirky coincidence in the floor plan. They are the same argument from different ends of the timeline. Here is what Emirati hands have always made. Here is what Emirati industry will make next. When cultural institutions are embedded in industrial strategy, the program stops being a government initiative and starts becoming national pride. The factories become part of the story a country tells about itself. That transition is not accidental, it is governance design, and most people walking past it don't even notice. The marketing layer is, frankly, extraordinary. And I say this as someone who has spent a career at the intersection of communications and commercial strategy. Make It in the Emirates is not an event name. It is a brand campaign operating at sovereign scale, with a media budget measured not in advertising spend, but in legislative weight. Dr. Sultan Al Jaber's opening line, "Those who build own their future," is not policy language, it is copywriting. The AED 180 billion procurement drive is not buried in a white paper. It is announced as a headline aspiration, with the full emotional architecture of a product launch. The UAE government has constructed a brand funnel: awareness, consideration, commitment, advocacy, and the vehicle for running it is their own national industrial strategy. Most commercial brands never achieve that kind of alignment between what they say and what they structurally compel. The UAE has. I find it hard not to admire the craft, even as I recognize how rarely it gets called what it is: communications work. And then there is the community layer, the one that makes all the others compound. 61% of exhibitors at Meet at 2026 are SMEs. This is not incidental. It is the signature of a strategy to build ecosystem density from the bottom up, while using sovereign weight to guarantee critical mass from the top down. When you reach a threshold of participation, 1245 companies, 12,000 visitors, 7 Emirates represented, the conversation shifts. It stops being, "Should I join this ecosystem?" and starts being, "How do I get a place in it?" Network effects, once triggered, do the work that incentives alone never could. I spoke to people on the floor this week who had flown in specifically because their competitors were there. That is the moment an ecosystem stops being a policy program and becomes a market. The cumulative effect of all four levers: legal obligation, governance identity, brand narrative, community density is something that has a name in strategy, even if it is rarely applied to national ecosystems: switching costs. The UAE has made leaving more expensive than staying, not through coercion, but through the slow, deliberate accumulation of shared investment in supply chains, in identity, in relationships, in reputation. You cannot easily unpick that. This is what Make It in the Emirates actually builds: not factories, not GDP numbers, but the structural conditions for irreversibility. The lesson is not exclusively governmental. Any organization trying to build an ecosystem, a supply chain, a professional community, a platform, a regulatory framework, faces the same core challenge: converting transactional participants into committed stakeholders. The UAE's playbook is a working blueprint. Legal architecture creates obligation, governance design creates identity, communications create aspiration, community creates network value no single participant could generate alone. Those who build own their future. But the building has to happen on all four walls at once, or you are just erecting a very expensive tent. THESIGNAL. The UAE's industrial sector contribution has reached AED 200 billion, a 70% increase since 2021, with industrial exports climbing to a record AED 262 billion. Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology, Make It in the Emirates, 2026, opening address, Abu Dhabi, 4th May 2026. The pace of that movement, from AED 133 billion in 2021 to AED 200 billion today in just 5 years, is not attributable to market forces alone. It is the measurable output of a deliberately engineered ecosystem. The number matters less than what it represents: proof that legal obligation, governance alignment, and community density, applied consistently over time, produce compounding returns that pure capital attraction cannot replicate. THEQUESTIONIF. The UAE has built a national industrial ecosystem by making legal obligation, cultural identity, brand narrative, and community density work together. What would it look like if your organization applied even one of those levers more deliberately to the ecosystem you are trying to build? And which of the four is the one you are currently relying on least? SOURCESNFURTHERREADING. Make It in the Emirates 2026 kicks off in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi Media Office. Those who build own their future. Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, the National UAE Industrial Platform, boosts innovation-led growth at MITA 2026. Gulf News UAE to announce key initiatives to strengthen industrial resilience. Economy Middle East UAE unveils AED 180B industrial push at MITE 2026. Serari Group resilience and investment are key themes. The National ADNOC bets 55 BN on local supply chains. The National ADNOC launches industrial resilience program at MIT. ADNOC. The views expressed in this newsletter are Jonathan Ashton's own personal perspectives and do not represent the views of any organization with which he is affiliated.